Hi, I'm Leezá Steindorf. I'm an international leadership coach, a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, and I've helped thousands of leaders and learners around the world find ease and unlock power that they didn't even know they had. And today we're delving into such an important part of simply being, but something almost none of us have been taught or learned about listening. And not just listening, but actually a specific kind of listening that only shows up in real life, not in communication books and not in trainings all the time. It's the listening that we're called to do when we're annoyed or hurt or defensive. You know what I'm talking about, right? Someone's talking, but suddenly all their words start hitting you like physical impact, like bruising you, right? And so instead of hearing them, your mind starts running in its own commentary about what they're saying. Okay, so that's what we're going to delve into. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe because it keeps these conversations going and it also helps this work reach people who need it. So, listening when things are calm, it's easy, right? And listening when you're triggered, that can be tough. And most people don't even bother. They don't even try. They just react. They're not even trying to listen. They defend, they shut down, they start building their case and over talking the other person. Of course, I've never done that. Of course, I've done that. We've all done that, right? So, listening when it's hard, that's where not only relationships change, but that's where you start to feel stronger in who you are and how you communicate. And today I want to walk you through what real listening looks like when you're annoyed or hurt or feel defensive. Because it's in that moment when your communication either deepens a connection or can actually damage the connection. And it's not about, I'm not talking about being agreeable and just giving in. It's really about being present. So here's the truth. When you stop listening to the other person, they actually stop trusting you. And it's not because you're bad at listening, but because when you're defensive, you're actually really not even in the conversation that they're having. You're in reaction. And I'm not saying what they're saying or how they're saying it is okay, right? But they're not listening to this video right now. You are. So you're in the power seat to turn things around. You're in the position to really pivot the conversation and the dynamic. And in that moment, when you lose your center, you also lose access to that other person. It just goes away and a wall comes up. So today I'm going to help you stay in the conversation, stay in your center without abandoning yourself. Okay? So there's my groundwork is core, clarity, ownership, resolution, excellence. And we're going to walk through those four components because those are tools that are really going to be able to help you with this. So let's start with clarity. And clarity, what I mean by that is really getting clear about what the moving pieces are. What exactly is involved with what we're dealing with? So when you're annoyed or hurt, your brain doesn't listen to what's being said. It's actually listening for evidence that matches what story you now have come up with. Okay, so you're really not even in fact mode. And that story might be they don't care about me, I'm being blamed, I'm not respected, I'm being attacked. And that may or may not be the case, but that's literally fact versus filter in action, right? The fact is the person is speaking, the filter is the meaning that your mind layers on top of the facts. So when you're triggered, when your filter gets louder than the fact, when how you're feeling defensive and angry is bigger than what the person actually said or the words, and suddenly you're not listening to them, you're listening to that meaning that your nervous system has created, right? And especially if you've dealt with trauma or you are living in circumstances or working in circumstances where there's a lot of tension and conflict, it becomes a pattern that you react. And when you react, when your nervous system is triggered like that, conversations will go nowhere. Arguments will go nowhere. It just ends up being this batting of heads and stagnation. And there's no way that you can actually resolve misunderstanding while you're living inside the misunderstanding. So, first thing is in clarity is you name what your filter is. You can do it out loud, but you don't have to at all. You just do it internally for yourself, right? So, for example, I'm feeling blamed. or I feel misunderstood, or I feel like I'm being dismissed here, right? And when you name the feeling, when you name your response to what's happening to those facts, you actually reclaim your stance in that conversation. Just that small shift, that acknowledgement of your experience, it breaks an automatic loop. One thing that I do for myself is I like to anchor things in the physical world, in the physical being. So when something happens and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're saying that, I feel so frustrated with, is I just kind of tug at my ear. For me, it's a remind, don't just gently, just kind of tug at my ear. And it reminds me, brings me back to my body. And it reminds me, what am I hearing? Like inside, and what is it they're saying? So that gives me a physical anchor to what my filter is, what I'm hearing, what commentary I have running. And that can bring you back into your body and out of your defensiveness. And from there, when you're back into your experience, then listening becomes possible again. All right, so let's talk now about ownership. And ownership, the way that I define it, is taking 100% responsibility for your part in anything. So it literally, I'm sure you've heard this, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. It really is true. And ownership is like that. It's not that you're responsible for what happened out there in the world, but you're responsible for how you respond to it, how you're going to think about it, what you're going to say, right? That's 100% in your control. Other things are not in your control. You can influence them, but the only thing in your control is your own being. Okay, so ownership does not mean taking the blame, even if people are blaming you. It means taking responsibility for your part in the interaction. All right, so in conversations where you're annoyed or hurt or you get defensive, and I have done that, trust me, I still do it sometimes. Your part is to usually do something like this, and you can say it out loud or you say it to yourself. I am reacting to the tone, not the content. Or, I'm assuming what their motive is. Or, I'm waiting to defend myself instead of actually listening to them, right? Those are the times when you are preparing what you're going to say. You're preparing your part of the argument rather than staying in curiosity. So when you're able to own your emotional upheaval in a conversation like that, man, it goes so far to anchor you within yourself. Literally, owning your part does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. It lets you ground and it puts you back in the driver's seat of your experience. And I really want to distinguish that. Ownership is about owning your experience, not the other person's and not the entire situation, but your part in it, right? Because the moment that you take ownership and feel responsible for your inner state, you actually stop depending on the other person to make you comfortable, right? When you own your own comfort level or discomfort, you're sovereign because the other person, they may be ranting and raving. But if you take ownership for your discomfort or your comfort, it's independent of what they're doing. And that's freedom. That's really the place where understanding and curiosity and ease live within yourself. So here's the ownership statement that I teach people across literally every culture I've encountered. Here it is. I can be present even when I'm uncomfortable. I can be present even when I'm uncomfortable. And that presence is being in your center and being with yourself. Yeah, ownership. And that one line changes everything. And you don't need to run or defend, simply be. And a lot of people have felt that that's a dangerous place to be, that defense is actually your strongest stance. It's not, because then you just engage in this power play, in this drama dynamic. That's not strength. That's swirl, right? So when you can say to yourself, I can be present even when I'm uncomfortable, and you come back to yourself, it lets you feel that you're back. It lets you feel your stance. It's literally the essence of resilience. So listening becomes easier when you're not trying to avoid discomfort, when you can be with it for the moment. All right, let's talk about resolution. And the way that I define resolution or speak about it is alignment. It's how we bring together things that are out of alignment, right? We resolve inconsistencies, what my thoughts are from what my actions are, what I'm doing in the world. If it's not in alignment with my values, I bring that into alignment. So once you're grounded enough to listen, you've brought yourself back to your center, you can actually work with what's happening instead of reacting to it. All right, so here's a couple ideas of how resolution can look in real time in a conversation that is either off the rails or moving off the rails, okay? First one is to slow it down. Slow down the conversation. You don't need to interrupt. You just need to stay present and conscious. Listening isn't passive, it's actually quite active. And I think you would be amazed if you only did this part, only step number one of slowing it down and being present. I think you would really find that a lot of conversations shift. Try it out. Anyway, just step one. Here's the second one. Separate the impact from the intention. So, the impact on you might be painful. Absolutely. You may not want to hear what they're saying, or they may be saying it unkindly or with force, right? But that doesn't automatically mean that their intention was to harm you. It doesn't. And if you mix those two, the conversation often goes off the rails. So if you can separate the impact from the intention, that's super helpful. All right, the third one is reflect back. And this is, I cannot express to you how powerful this is. Not their whole monologue and not their tone, and not even what your interpretation was, but if you can mirror back the essence of what they've said, right? So, for example, um, I hear you felt shut out when I made the decision without talking to you. Or I hear that you were overwhelmed and you wanted more help. Or I hear that you didn't feel respected when I did that, just for some examples. So you're not saying you did anything wrong, you're actually listening from their perspective. And that's what we call reflective listening. And it's the kind of listening and hearing out loud that helps people feel heard and helps them feel safe. And actually, it helps them feel more willing to engage, right? It's going to give you your highest opportunity of you also being heard. It doesn't mean that you agree, it means that you actually heard them. And when people feel heard that way, they relax. Their nervous system, the back brain, the oldest part of our nervous system that is created to keep us safe and defend or attack or run, it calms when it hears, oh, this person gets me. Okay, they heard what I said. That nervous system tells us we're safe here. There's no tiger or lion coming. We can calm down, and it de-escalates. Yeah, they stop escalating and they stop posturing. So listening well is actually one of the fastest ways to de-escalate tension. And that you can do that without minimizing your experience or your stance at all, right? Just the things that I said, you're hearing the other person. And when that environment is calmed down, then you can bring in your perspective calmly and cleanly and without any kind of necessary tension. Okay, let's talk about excellence. And the E, C-O-R-E, and core is excellence. And the way that I speak to and about excellence is not about perfection. It's not about having everything polished and being on perfect all the time. It's really knowing the highest and best in yourself and choosing to come from that place and engaging others from that place. So in regard to listening when it's tough, excellence means choosing to respond from who you are at your best rather than how you're feeling triggered. And that may take a minute too, right? So in heated conversations, there are a couple steps you can take that will help you. First one is stay connected to your worth. If you forget your value because things have gotten escalated and and you're listening to what they're saying or the tone that they're saying it, you're going to hear everything as an attack. And that's understandable, but it's not useful. So when you stay grounded in your self-worth, it literally calms your listening. And what I do is I put my hand on my chest, just like I was saying earlier, I tug at my ear gently. I put my hand on my chest so that I just remember I'm right here, right? I don't have to say anything, just hand on my chest. Second thing is to speak from your center, not from fear. So when you're anchored in your experience, you don't have to try and convince or defend or justify. You can just be right here and speak from that center. Sometimes, if it's intense, I'll close my eyes for a minute or two, or I'll speak with my eyes closed, or I'll speak really softly. So I stay grounded in my center, right? Whatever helps you to stay grounded in your center. The third one is don't collapse and don't explode. And it's hard. I know. Trust me. I think I've mentioned many times here that I grew up in violence. And so my patterning was to be loud and to defend. So if you can unlearn collapsing, which is, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm out of here, or explode, you're wrong and I'm right, and overpower them. If you can move beyond those two options, that's where you find excellence. It's beyond the one or the two. It's grounding, it's being steady, it's being present, and it's respecting yourself. And when you respect yourself, you're in a whole lot better position to respect and hear the other person. And they get that. They can feel it. Their nervous system is active too, right? Fourth one is to keep your voice calm and your body relaxed. So I said that earlier, but remember, it's for you, not for them. Yeah. So when you stay calm physically, it supports clear thinking. And that clear thinking allows good listening. And the last one is please be willing to pause and slow things down. We have gotten so fast in this world. And a pause doesn't mean it's a power struggle. To say that you want to take a minute, whew, that's strength. And it also lets you anchor, right? So you can say, let me take a breath, or I want to hear you. Give me a second. Or I need a moment to understand what you're saying. And even sometimes when I'm working with a group, I'll say, I just need a minute. Not whether tensions are high or not. I just need a minute. And people respect that. And in any case, you get to take it because it'll give you the space that you need. And that's leadership. It's inner leadership. All right. So I'd like to offer you a mini practice. And it's something that you can use the next time that things get heated. I call it the 7-second rest. I call it the 7-second reset. Number one, breathe in for 2 seconds. Breathe out, exhale for 4. And then feel your feet on the ground for 1. Breathe in for 2, exhale for 4, and feel your feet for 1. And that physical reset interrupts that reactive loop so that you can actually return to yourself and allows you to return to listening. And you do that before you respond to the other person, right? You literally take the time to do that reset before you respond. They don't even need to know you're doing it. Might just look like a breath to them. So that changes really the trajectory of the conversation, or it gives you the highest chance for the trajectory to change. Okay, so I want to come into our closing. Listening when you're annoyed or you're hurt or you're defensive, it does not mean you have to be perfect, and it also doesn't mean you have to be passive. Remember what I said? It's about being present and conscious. It's about staying in your own authority instead of buying into or living in that story that your narrative is telling you. And when you learn to listen from your center, your relationships change. And most importantly, you change. You start grooming that inner resilience. Your presence becomes steadier, your communication becomes clearer, and people will literally start to listen and respect you because you are respecting yourself. It's not only energetic, it's literally a synergy of healthier relating. So If you want to support in applying this to your life or your leadership or your relationships, you can reach out to me directly or leave a comment below. And if you found this useful for your own listening and slowing down to understand, go ahead and like the video, subscribe so you'll know when new videos drop, and do leave a comment. Share an experience when it was hard for you to listen or when you were able to slow it down and hear another person when it was tough. Yeah, it only takes practice. And trust me, if I learned this, anyone can. You've got it. Honestly, believe in yourself.